Before I start this review, I want it to be said that a lot of the aspects and elements of the game I'm going to be talking about aren't inherently bad or negative on their own in a vacuum. They aren't in a vacuum though. Everything that is in this game has been deemed so interesting and so necessary by the developers that it warranted only covering a small section of the original story and never leaving Midgar. For fans of the original Final Fantasy VII and the pre-remake expanded universe, there are going to be a lot of differences in the way the content of this game is viewed. For new players though, they are, in all likelihood, just going to experience what they find to be a pretty decent RPG. Keep in mind that everything I'm about to say comes from the viewpoint of a fan, and from the understanding that this game had to prove being Midgar only was the right thing to do. Based on its own merits in a reality where the original doesn't exist, there may be many more favourable things to say. With that said though, I guess we should get started. I don't even know where to start with this review. I guess I should do the negativity sandwich thing, start with a positive, do all the negatives, and then end on a positive. It's going to be one hell of a thick sandwich though. But anyway, a positive. Well, the music is pretty damn good. Actually, no, it's great. There are so many different arrangements of the classic Uematsu tracks, and just about all of them are straight up porn for your ears. With very few exceptions, the music matched the atmosphere perfectly and enhanced every single thing that was happening on screen. The new approach to music, having different arrangements that fade in and out to help drive the game's action and narrative, is something I hope to see more of in the future. It would have been nice to hear a few more arrangements of some of the tracks. They leaned pretty heavily on the regular battle theme from the original, Those Who Fight, but I think I only heard one arrangement of the original boss battle theme, Those Who Fight Further, and I believe it was only played one time. Almost all the bosses use some arrangement of Those Who Fight, and you may have noticed that I've already started moving into the negatives. The simple fact of the matter is, Final Fantasy VII Remake does not justify being only the Midgar section of the original game. It's not so much expanded as it is padded the fuck out. Midgar doesn't feel any bigger than it did in the original because you don't really get to go anywhere new, and the very few new areas you do get to go are little more than a hallway or a courtyard where you fight a gauntlet of enemies coming at you from a facility you never get to enter. It doesn't feel like a game where they started development and realized they had so much valuable content to add to Midgar that they had to cut out the rest of the game. It feels like a game where they made the decision for it to only cover Midgar and then struggled to come up with anything of value to make it a full standalone game, instead resorting to flagrant padding the likes of which have never been seen before. Make no mistake, this is a reboot. I got flack for calling it that in a previous video because you all thought that this would be the same story. I mean, it does have remake in the title, surely they weren't going to change the story that much, right? Wrong. This is a reboot or a reimagining at the very best. There are lots of new story elements and tons of story changes, but the bulk of them range from bad to terrible. The core identity of Final Fantasy VII's story has been almost completely changed, with a central focus being put on a brand new plot device that doesn't belong in this game. The Arbiters of Fate belong in the convoluted mess that is Kingdom Hearts, not in Final Fantasy VII. In fact, this whole game reeks of Kingdom Hearts, and not in a good way. The control scheme is dumb and clunky, complete with Nomura's signature of using the triangle button in the worst possible way. Why the fuck is triangle the way to open chests and use a secondary ability while the X button is the one that opens the menu? I played this game for 26 hours and I still didn't develop the muscle memory needed to have this control scheme make sense. And yeah, 26 hours, 15 minutes to be exact, that's how long it took me to finish it. And that wasn't just rushing the main story either. It doesn't feel like a complete game, certainly not one that's been in development for 6 years. You can drag out as many examples of JRPGs with 25 to 35 hours of content as you like, it's a perfectly fine size for a game, but not for an RPG that's been in development for 6 years and was restricted to just one city because the developers told us that the game was going to be so unfeasibly large they couldn't possibly do any more. The simple fact is that Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the shortest and smallest mainline Final Fantasy games, and certainly the shortest 3D Final Fantasy game, while also having the longest development cycle, second only to Final Fantasy XV, which was at least 2.5 times larger in terms of content. In some ways though, I'm glad it was this short. By the end, I was begging it to end. I spent most of my playthrough either shaking my head in disbelief or shaking it in disappointment. The first time this happened was right at the beginning of Chapter 3. Well actually, it happened earlier than that thanks to the worst redesign in history that is the New Sephiroth, but Chapter 3 is when you first rock up to the Sector 7 slums. I was led to believe in my interview with Yoshinori Kitase that the side content in this game was not going to be traditional side quests, but rather lots of little character and story episodes. I'm not sure if you'd really call them traditional side quests, but there are a lot of little story episodes and character episodes and side activities you can go and experience there that you couldn't in the original.
Nothing but a bunch of lies.
The vast majority of the optional content in this game, including everything in Chapter 3, is comprised of generic, meaningless fetch quests that add nothing of value to the story. Talk to the item shop man, he'll tell you to go kill some rats. Walk around the corner, kill some rats. Go back and he'll tell you they weren't the right rats. Go back around the corner, kill more rats. Generic busywork side quests complete. Your reward for completing all 6 Ubisoft busywork side quests in this chapter, including such fascinating tasks as finding some cats for a little girl and killing more random monsters, is a 30-second scene where Tifa flirts with Cloud a bit and nothing else of consequence or interest happens. In total, there are 4 chapters that act as side quest hubs, and all but one of them are like this, filled with dull, generic fetch quests that add absolutely nothing of value. The exception is Chapter 9, which also happens to be the best part of this game. Chapter 9 is amazing in its own right, and if it were the blueprint for expansion that the development of this game followed, the game would have been amazing. Chapter 9 is the Wall Market chapter, aka the Don Corneo and Cloud cross-dressing chapter, and that is going to have its own separate video. For now, just know that they did significantly expand this section of the story, but it was done right, it was fun, it was interesting, it made sense, and it was faithful. One of the biggest problems I have with this game is the decision to add completely new and terrible story elements, characters and plot devices rather than expand the things that were sitting there on a silver platter ready to be expanded. I was always worried about the Midgar only aspect, and it seems my worries were very justified, but prior to playing I thought of some of the things they could expand that would make sense and that I would probably enjoy. We never got the Before Crisis spin-off in English that expands the lore of the Turks, so it would have been nice to have the Turks expanded in Final Fantasy VII Remake. But no, there's almost less Turks in this than in the Midgar section of the original. Another thought I had was that since summons were now being brought into the game much earlier than in the original, it would be the perfect opportunity to delve into the lore of them. Where do the summon materia come from? How are they made, or who makes them? Is there only one for each summon? How do they work? And of course, I assumed we'd be going on some epic adventures to get these all-powerful summons. But no. In fact, worse than no. The first summon you get is just handed over to you nonchalantly by Jessie. Nobody mentions the significance of what was just handed over, no explanation for how Jessie has it or where it came from. In fact, you don't even find out that it is a summon materia until you check your inventory later. You will find the other summon materia in wondrous locations, such as on the ground in front of a ventilation fan, or once again given to you, but this time by a new character named Chadley, who gives you a one-line explanation that he's found a way to create them, but only after you fight a simulation of them in a VR headset. Other than all of Chapter 9, there is one other expanded aspect that is great in FF7R, and that is the aforementioned Jessie. I won't say all the expanded Avalanche stuff is good, because honestly some of it feels like it was created purely as a get out of jail free card when the devs wrote themselves into a corner. Jessie though has been turned into a fantastically interesting character. She was given a wonderful backstory, her interactions with Cloud and the rest of the characters are fun to watch, and she endears herself to the player very quickly. Her voice actress does a brilliant job too. Most voices actually sound really good, besides Sephiroth's new voice, which I hate with a passion, and Barrett's, which occasionally slips from the exaggerated Mr. T he's supposed to sound like into something that sounds like a white guy doing a bad impression of Mr. T. The new story aspect I hate the most are the Dementors from Harry Potter. They're called the Arbiters of Fate in this game, and we are told that essentially they show up anytime somebody is trying to change fate, because everything has a fate and nothing can go against that fate. This has been pulled straight out of Nomura's ass, and it is shit. The original had a thing where the planet tried to protect itself. That makes sense within this universe. The Arbiters of Fate, however, which I guess come from the planet, only care about fate. If fate says that the planet will be destroyed, they will actively fight to ensure their own destruction. They're also used in the laziest way possible over and over and over again to cover up bad writing, or to retcon something from the original, or to take responsibility off of someone or something. They are garbage, and they too will get their own video. Of the other ways this game has been padded out into a short but apparently full game, areas from the original, usually the most annoying ones, have been superficially extended and made more tedious, once again usually adding nothing of value to justify its expansion. The train graveyard was once 20 minutes, now it's over an hour with some new go nowhere ghost plot, and the shortcut that Aerith takes you on between Sector 5 and Sector 7 has been extended to over an hour as well, this time using little more than excruciatingly slow animations to achieve the extended length. The animations for the robot hands in this area, that you need to interact with over and over again to proceed, are so slow that I found myself picking up my phone and browsing Twitter just to pass the time. That very short section from the original where you climb up to the top plate has been turned into a whole chapter now, and it produces such stunning PlayStation 1 visuals as this. In fact, the visuals overall aren't even that impressive. If you look past anything that isn't a character model or immediately in the foreground, you'll see a lot of very low resolution textures and visuals. Swiss cheese hair is back in full force, and there are a number of technical issues, one of the main ones being very long delays when entering cutscenes. I also ran into a soft lock in the Shinra building when you're crawling through the air duct. You can press triangle to look down into different rooms and spy on what's going on, but once you enter this view, you are unable to exit it. The button that is meant to exit you from this view does nothing. You are unable to save because you cannot open the proper menu, and your only option is to return to the title screen or restart the game. I did report this to Square Enix, so hopefully that has already been patched or will be patched very soon. I don't like the hybrid combat system. If you do, more power to you, but to me it feels clunky and never flows nicely. There are nowhere near enough skill shortcuts to play it like a full action system, and classic mode is a lazy joke, meaning you will have to interact with the hybrid aspect constantly. Tifa is the only one I found to be approaching fun to play, and that is because her secondary ability is like a combo finisher. You can somewhat play Tifa like it's a proper action combat system, though not quite, and you'll predominantly just be pressing square over and over in between pausing the game to menu. The party's AI that controls your other party members is among the worst I have ever experienced in any game, and that is not an exaggeration. There are also no options at all to customize the party AI. You can't even do something simple like tell a character to focus on healing. You can somewhat get around this specific scenario by using a materia called Auto Cure, but basic tactics or AI customization has been in just about every party-based RPG since the fucking PS1, and they couldn't even manage to give us that. I do, however, like all the new abilities and mechanics bosses have now. They feel unique, and they're usually pretty epic encounters. The weapon upgrade system is also something I like. It gives you greater customization over your character, with a ton of upgrade options laid out on something that somewhat resembles a sphere grid. To end this video, I kind of wanted to talk about the end of this game, but apart from not wanting to drop major spoilers, I'm not even sure if I could explain to you how badly they screwed up the end, and indeed the entire story of FF7 as a whole. I could give you a good 10-minute summary of the events that happened towards the end, and if I didn't name names or tell you it was in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you wouldn't even know that I was talking about Final Fantasy VII. If I wanted to play Kingdom Hearts, I'd play Kingdom Hearts, and I'll just leave it at that. I'll be covering the few positives I took from this experience, like Chapter 9 in separate videos, as well as some other things that are Final Fantasy VII Remake related, so keep an eye out for those in the coming days and weeks. Before I sign off though, I do want to stress that I take no pleasure in being this negative about the game. I don't think I've ever been this negative about a game on this channel before, and as a huge fan of the Final Fantasy VII universe, I really wanted to at least like this game, but I just don't. I'm sorry if that disappoints you or if that makes you angry because you've crafted your entire identity around this game being perfect, but it doesn't change what this game is, and what it is, to me, is one of the biggest gaming disappointments I've ever experienced. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.
and sharing.